The mystery unfolds. Nights have passed since James encountered his ghost, and whenever the engine teases him about it, James gets so stressed. The engine still carried on teasing him about it. It was me you were scared of, James, he said, because you're scared that the fact that I'm better than you, and that I'm stronger than you, and you're not splendid at all. This made James very cross. He had had enough of the engine teasing him, and he hastily blew his whistle as loud as he could. "Enough already!" he shouted. "It wasn't me who I was scared of, okay? It was my ghostly self," he shouted. "So there." But the engine was most offended. "So you're thinking I'm stupid to not know that, James," said the engine crossly. "You're selfish and you always think I'm the worst." With that, the turntable turned towards the engine and he puffed out of the sheds to sleep somewhere else. The next morning, the engine stayed at the sheds where they keep the other trucks at. The trucks were very surprised to have had an engine in their shed. No engine had come anywhere near towards the trucks since they were troublesome, but this time the engine made friends with the troublesome trucks. They laughed and they giggled together. When the coast was clear, a man stepped out of the engine. It was a good idea to save you from that scrapyard," he said slowly. The truth was, the engine was a private engine to this man. After he had been saved from the scrapyard, the engine liked being friends with the owner, because he was a very true hero to him. The engine spoke to his master. Was our plan a success?" he asked. "Yes," said the owner. He knew that James had already been his next target. The truth about those two, that they came to Sodor to resurrect ghosts that were already dead, although James the Red Engine wasn't dead. "What can we do next?" asked the engine. "Well, I'd like to say well done for teasing James about his experience," said the owner. Now we can wait a little while longer to cause even more trouble." The two both started plotting and plotting. At last, the time had come. Evening came, and they were finally putting their plan into action. Moments after, the engine and his owner went to resurrect a ghost from inside Henry's tunnel. They were under the tunnel and stopped him there. "Now for our plan," whispered the engine to his owner. But then there was trouble. They could hear an engine coming. Behind them was Billy. Billy the orange tank engine was on his late passenger run. He was still on his way back to the station when he heard a loud screaming noise. Then his driver stopped Billy. "What was that?" he asked. "It must have been a woman screaming," said his driver. Or maybe it was just a ghost," said his fireman, and they puffed away. And then Thomas puffed in to see what was going on. He heard the screaming noise, but then he stopped. He realized that he came in front of a ghost. The figure looked calmly at Thomas. She was a very friendly ghost. She knew Thomas was the friendliest engine she had ever met. Thomas said his goodbyes to the figure, and she disappeared. And Thomas was on his way. engine growled out of the darkness. "That's it," she said. "That plan didn't work. It was a failure," he shouted to his owner. And with a silent blast of his whistle, the engine came out of the tunnel and went crossly away. The next morning, the green engine was still thinking that his owner wasn't a useful owner at all. "He's useless," he said to himself. I hope if I leave Sodor, he won't come back and see me again. I would rather leave Sodor with him," he said. He was so annoyed that he started thinking about causing trouble for Sodor first, and then to his owner. But that's another story.